Hello students. So today we'll be studying about the development of tongue. So our specific learning objectives in the development of the tongue is that you should be able to describe the development of the tongue, its different lingual swellings. Then you should be able to give the embryological basis of the nerve supply of the tongue, and you should be able to describe the different developmental anomalies of the tongue. So we have divided the development of tongue in two different parts, that is its oral part, which is developing from the lingual swellings, and that of a posterior one third, that is the pharyngeal part of the tongue. So firstly you have to understand that there were the pharyngeal arches. These are the dippings, first, second, third, and this one is the fourth pharyngeal arch. Similarly, here internally it is endodermal line. So these dippings are the pouches on the inner side. Outer one will be the clefts. So these are the pharyngeal arches. So on the both the sides there are the four pharyngeal arches. Over here you can see these are the dippings in between. These were the clefts. Now the ventromedial side of the pharynx. So you are looking on the pharynx, on the neck region from below. So here the mesenchyme will proliferate. So this one is the first arch mesenchyme. It will proliferate on the from both the sides. So it will form two swellings. These are known as the lingual swellings. So two distal lingual swellings and one median swelling. So these are the three lingual swellings, two distal lingual or lateral lingual swellings and one median lingual swelling, all contributed by the first arch. Then comes the second arch. Now behind this will be a small dip, that is the foramen cecum, and the second arch mesenchyme will form a small swelling which is known as copula. Then comes the third and the fourth arch mesenchyme. They will be combining and they will be forming one big median swelling which is known as hypobranchial eminence, which is contributed by the third and the fourth arch. Fifth arch is disappearing, and behind it are the arytenoid swellings, which we are not concerned, which is between this laryngotracheal group. This one is the laryngotracheal group. This one is laryngotracheal group. So we have two lateral swellings, one median lingual swelling contributed by the first arch, then is the foramen cecum from where the thyroglossal duct will be growing downwards. This is the copula contributed by the mesenchyme of the second arch. Then is our hypobranchial eminence, which has a greater cranial part contributed by third and the fourth arch, and the posterior one third or posterior small part which is known as epiglottal swelling. All these swellings will be contributing to the formation of the tongue. So this is the picture which you will be seeing in the floor of mouth. So now we'll start with our development. So firstly, the development of the oral part of the tongue. So firstly, it starts with the proliferation of the mesenchyme of the first arch. So over here, the green colored one is the first arch. So the mesenchyme will proliferate and it will give rise to two lateral lingual swellings. So over here, you can see these are the two lateral lingual swellings or the distal tongue buds, and one median lingual swellings, which is known as tuberculum impar. So now the two lateral lingual swellings, they will overgrow this tuberculum impar. In the second figure, you can see it is overgrowing the median lingual swelling, and they will grow and they will form the anterior two-third of the tongue. Now when they will grow, they will fuse in midline. So this fused part will form the fibrous lingual septum internally. The fusion point between the two lateral lingual swelling is represented by median lingual septum. Now, the median lingual swelling, it does not form a recognizable part in the adults. So mainly the anterior two-third, it is, you can see, it is formed by the mesenchymal proliferation of the first arch, basically by the two lateral lingual swellings, and the median lingual swelling, it gets buried beneath the two lateral lingual swellings. Now, the development of the pharyngeal part of the tongue, or the posterior one-third of the tongue. Now, you have seen over here, these are the two lateral lingual swellings and one medial lingual swelling. It is being overgrown by the two lateral lingual swelling. Behind is the foramen cecum. Now, behind is our second arch. So, our second arch, mesenchyme, it will also proliferate ventromedially and it will form a swelling which is known as copula. So this one is copula. And then at the same time, the mesenchyme of the third and the fourth arch, it will also proliferate and it will form a big swelling that is known as hypobranchial eminence. Now this hypobranchial eminence, it is having a cranial part and a caudal part. So over here you can see it is having a cranial part and it is having a caudal part. Now with the due course of time, this hypobrachial eminence, it will overgrow this copula, and so now the copula will disappear. So over here in second figure you can see the copula, it has disappeared, and so posterior one-third of the tongue is mainly made up of hypobranchial eminence, its cranial part. So mainly the cranial part of the hypobranchial eminence is contributing to the posterior one-third of the tongue, which is mainly contributed by the third arch as well as slight component of the fourth arch. The caudal part will give rise to epiglottal swelling. So now you can see over here, you can have a better look. Over here is the foramen cecum, which is the meeting point of anterior two-third and posterior one-third of the tongue. Posterior one-third of the tongue is contributed by the hypobranchial eminence formed by the third and the fourth arch. The second arch element, it gets disappeared. So that is why in the nerve supply, we don't study about in general sensation. Facial nerve does not supply the general sensory part of the tongue. It is only supplying the taste bud that is taken by the chorda tympani. That is also a pre-traumatic branch of the first pharyngeal arch. Now the fusion point of the anterior two-third and the posterior one-third is represented by a sulcus, which is known as terminal sulcus. Now the musculature of the tongue. So cranial neural crest cells, they will migrate into the developing tongue and they will give rise to connective tissue and the vasculature of the tongue. So most of the tongue muscles, if you remember, they are derived from the occipital myotomes. So there was para-axial mesoderm that was forming somites. So head mesenchyme, ahead of that, in front of the notochord, there was pre-somites. They were pre-somites and head mesenchyme. So the pre-somites, they will form the occipital myotomes and they will contribute to the musculature of the tongue. And since the nerve supply of that occipital somites is by the hypoglossal nerve, so when they will migrate, they will carry along with their nerve supply with them. So the most of the part of the muscular part of the tongue, muscles of the tongue, it is supplied by the hypoglossal nerves, except the palatoglossus, which is developing from head mesenchyme. So that is supplied by the pharyngeal plexus. So there are different age changes in the tongue. So whenever there is growth of the newborn baby, so it has the oral and the pharyngeal part, both are situated in the oral cavity. It is only by the 4 years of age, the posterior third, it will descend into the oropharynx. Now something about the lingual papillae. So they will first appear towards the end of 8th week. Now the valate and the foliate papillae, they are first to appear. And since they are appearing in the posterior one-third of part of the tongue, they are close to the terminal branches of the glossopharyngeal nerve. Then the fungiform papillae, they will appear later near the terminations of the chorda tympani. So the chorda tympani, which is a branch of facial, is taking only the taste sensations from these taste buds. And most common lingual papillae, they are known as filiform papillae. They are developing during the early fetal period, that is 10 to 11 weeks. Then they contain afferent nerve endings that are very sensitive to touch, the filiform papillae, and the taste buds, which will develop during the period of 11 to 13 weeks of intrauterine life. It is because of the the interaction between the epithelial cells and the nerve cells. Epithelial cells of the papillae and the nerve cells, in whose close proximity they are developing. So now the nerve supply, the embryological basis of the nerve supply of the tongue, which is a frequently asked question in your university as well as the pre-university examinations. So since the anterior two-third of the tongue, it is contributed by the first arch. So the general sensation or the sensory supply to the mucosa of anterior two-third of the tongue is by the lingual branch of the mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve, since it is the nerve of the first pharyngeal arch. Then the facial nerve is the nerve of the second pharyngeal arch, but its branch, that is the chorda tympani, is only supplying the taste bud, and that too fungiform papillae in the anterior two-third of the tongue. So it is not supplying the valate papillae. The sensation from the valate papillae will be taken by the glossopharyngeal nerve. So over here you can have a better look. This one is the anterior two-third, excuse me, contributed by the mandibular division, the lingual branch. The second arch disappears because of the copula is overgrown by the third and the fourth pharyngeal arches. So chorda tympani is only supplying the fungiform taste bud, since foliate is absent in human beings, and also the valate papilla is being supplied by the glossopharyngeal. Filiform is not having any taste buds. You have to remember this. Then the third pharyngeal arch nerve is the glossopharyngeal nerve, which is the general sensory supply of the posterior one-third. Excuse me. And the posterior most is by the fourth pharyngeal arch nerve, that is the superior laryngeal nerve, which is a branch of vagus. So the second, over here in this figure, you can see the second arch component is being overgrown by the third and the fourth arch, principally the third arch component. So that is why it gets buried. So it is not contributing to any general sensation of the tongue. The valate papilla in the anterior part of the tongue is innervated by the glossopharyngeal nerve, which is the nerve of the third pharyngeal arch. So the reason usually given for is that the mucosa of the posterior third of the tongue, it is overgrowing, or it is slightly pulled anteriorly over the anterior part. Excuse me. So the posterior one-third of the tongue is innervated mainly by the glossopharyngeal nerve, which is a nerve of the third pharyngeal arch. The superior laryngeal branch of the vagus nerve of the fourth arch supplies a small area of the tongue anterior to the epiglottis. So since fourth arch is also contributing to a part of the posterior most part of the pharyngeal part of the tongue, so posterior most part is being supplied by the superior laryngeal branch of the vagus. And the motor supply of the tongue is contributed by hypoglossal nerve, since it is the nerve of the occipital somites, except palatoglossus, which is by the pharyngeal plexus. So over here you can have a better look. This one is the median lingual septum, which is representing the fusion of the two lateral lingual swellings. This is sulcus terminalis, representing the fusion of anterior two-third with the posterior one-third. This one is the foramen cecum, which is representing the proximal remnant of the thyroglossal duct, present just behind the sulcus terminalis in the midline. And then over here, this is the posterior one-third, contributed by the third and the fourth pharyngeal arches. Then during the development of the tongue, the ventral surface of the tongue, it is initially attached to the floor of mouth. that is why at the birth, the oral and the pharyngeal part both are present in the oral cavity itself. Then eventually it will regress from anterior to posterior side. So that is why it starts migrating into the pharyngeal part will start migrating into the oropharyngeal part, oropharynx of the oropharynx part of the pharynx. So this attachment starts regressing, freeing the anterior part of the tongue, but it, only it persists posteriorly as frenulum. So sometimes this frenulum is very short and it extends to the tip of the tongue. So when this apical part of the tongue, it gets anchored to the base of the mouth or the floor of the mouth by an overdeveloped frenulum, then the condition is known as tongue tie or ankyloglossia, which results in stammering of a speech. Now over here you can have a better look. This one is the tip of the tongue, and over here it is the being attached at the floor of the mouth by this frenulum. So to summarize the development of the tongue, the first pharyngeal arch is contributing to the 2 lateral lingual swelling and 1 median lingual swelling. Median tongue bud is overgrown by the lateral lingual swelling, and it is contributing to the formation of anterior 2/3 of the tongue. So that is why the nerve supply of the general sensation is carried by the lingual branch of the mandibular nerve, and the taste sensation by the pretraumatic branch, that is the cauda tympani. Then comes the second arch, is the copula. Copula is overgrown by the third and the fourth, by the hypobranchial eminence, which is contributed by the third and the fourth arch. So it is not forming any structure in the adult tongue. Then the pharyngeal arch 3 is the large ventral part is known as hypobranchial eminence. It is the hypobranchial eminence is mainly contributed by the third and the fourth arch. It's cranial and the caudal part. The cranial part of the hypobranchial eminence is contributing to the posterior 1/3 of the tongue. So that is why the nerve supply of general sensation as well as special sensation, that is the taste, is carried by the glossopharyngeal nerve, which also supplies the valid papillae. Valid papillae, though it is present in anterior 2/3, but still supplied by the glossopharyngeal, which is a nerve of posterior 1/3 of the tongue, because this mucosa is thought to be pulled over the anterior part of the tongue, anterior 2/3 of the tongue. Then the occipital somites forming the musculature, the intrinsic muscles of the tongue, is supplied by hypoglossal nerve, except the palatoglossus, which is formed by the head mesoderm. So it is supplied by the pharyngeal plexus of the vagus nerve. So there are different anomalies of the tongue. So one is, if the tongue is too large, then it is known as macroglossia. If it is too small, then it is known as microglossia. Then rarely it may be absent, so it may be aglossia. Then tongue may be bifid due to non-fusion of the two lingual swellings. So that is known as a bifid tongue. Then the tongue tie I've already told you, but if it is adherent to the palate, then it is known as ankyloglossia superior. Then a red rhomboid shaped smooth zone may be present on the tongue in front of the foramen cecum. It is considered to be the result of persistent tuberculum impar. Then sometimes the thyroid tissue, it may be present in the tongue, either under the mucosa or within the muscles. So it may is an example of aberrant thyroid tissue. Then there may be remnant of thyroglossal duct in the form of cyst at the base of the tongue. So these are the different anomalies of the tongue. So go through this topic. It is a very important topic. It is frequently asked in your exams as well as in the spotting as well. So that's all about the today's class.